One quick housekeeping thing, that make sure that, and we're making more, but we made several, and the copier is jammed up again. So be sure and bring your folders each week, because as the two Ricks come in and teach, we're going to be adding to your folder. Then when I come back in for three other classes, we're going to add to that. So when you get finished, you're going to have a pretty good little folder. So be sure and bring those. And those of you who don't have one, I'll get you some more. We're going to make some more. Today we're talking about the unique nature of the Bible. The word Bible itself means book. That's all the word Bible means. It's called the book or the Bible. And for well over 1,000 years it's been known as the Bible or the book. It's a book that has been, billions of copies have been made, billions. The second bestseller is not even in sight of the Bible. It's been translated into over 2,200 languages. It's plain, it's understandable, and even the very form of the Bible. Man couldn't do that. Can you imagine if we can see an accident on the street and there'll be 10 different witnesses, and there'll be 10 different versions of what they saw? The Bible, in fact, I don't want to steal too much of the thunder yet. I've asked Roland, he's going to be my scribe. You're going to use a biblical term here. Now, Roland is going to write down, and then I'm assuming you guys have read all of this and done your study, and so I'm not going to just go through it word by word. We don't have time for that. So, what are some of the ways that this book, this Bible, the book, the Bible, is unique? And what sets it apart from all other literature? In the history.
The only Word of God.
Okay. That's true. That's taking a definition and defining it by itself. But I hear you and I understand that.
You can't prove anything that's written in it is wrong.
Okay, which ties into what Nelma was saying. So it is the truth. Paula?
Actually, Trish, but
Oh my goodness. I see Paula now. There's identical twins, and there's you two. Wow.
It's cohesion for a number of authors.
Cohesion.
Yeah.
It's cohesive.
Especially given the number of authors.
That's perfect. Now we're unfolding this thing a little bit. The cohesion.
And over time, things that are said or predicted in one part are actually come true.
What's another word that you're 100% right? Prophecy. Now Wednesday night we'll get to prophecy. In fact, it's not in your notes, but you'll have them after Wednesday night. I've got, there's so many, but I've got 2, 4, 6. I've got 6 or 7 things that were written as early as 750 years before Jesus, down to the point where it even told where he was going to be born, and along with all the other details. There's no way to know that. There's no way to know that without some cohesion, some consistency. Okay, what does that imply? Well, okay, you go ahead and answer your...
I was just going to say the historical support, like the support of all of the scriptures historically.
Historical support. Okay, we're going to talk about that this morning. What else, Linda?
inspiration. Did somebody already say that?
Well, we can do that. It certainly ties into some of these other things. It's inspired. Now we're trying to prove how that takes place, and part of it so far is through consistency. So you're in the ball game without a doubt. You're there, Jason.
It's the only book that science has had to prove that it was true, as opposed to being written to prove science. For example, the world was a sphere. Well, scientists thousands or hundreds of years later finally
Yeah.
said, hey, the world is round, or hey, there are rivers in the ocean. It was spoken of long before science.
That's true. Does the Bible prove science, or science prove that the Bible was right after all?
Yeah.
Yes. We'll go with that one. In 14, remember in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean, all that fun stuff. Well, they thought that he was going to fall off the end of the earth. That's only, 550 years ago? 1,200 years before that, it says, and God sits above the circle of the earth. So for 2,000 years, or better, more than that, really, probably 2,400 years, the world said we thought it was flat and you would fall off the end. And God said, I sit above the circle of the earth. Thousands of years before it was actually proven. Caleb?
One of the most interesting books I ever read, and if anybody hasn't read it, they should, is a book by Arnold Schnabel,
Yeah.
Does God Exist?
Right.
Written from the point of a NASA scientist. And there's
Right.
2 or 3 things at least that the Bible said that got proven while he was working at NASA, and everybody thought he was crazy for thinking that.
No, that's right, and I'm going to Scott here in a second. That is true. It's by Arnold Schnabel. Does God exist? I've got a copy of
God
that.
has spoken.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, God has spoken or something like that. Yes, Scott.
The consistency of manuscripts from century to century.
Ah.
You go in and look.
That's a good consistency of
there's
consistency of
got-
manuscript.
You've got some that were, we've had this Bible come along. Then you find these Dead Sea Scrolls, and it matches up. We might have some minor spelling or whatever, but
Yep. 99.5% of all the things that have been discovered, in some cases centuries and even millennia apart, the fragments and the things that they've been discovered, and they compare it with all of the scribes who have copied things over, are exactly the same. They're consistent, with the exception of maybe some misspellings, and that can happen, those kinds of things. But anything that really mattered, it's consistent all the way through millennia. Don?
One of the things that is not advertised very much, they're claiming nowadays that the Old Testament was written after the release from Babylonian captivity. But the thing that they're not acknowledging is the silver amulet that was found in the Hinnom Valley that dates from around 720 BC that contains the priest's blessing from Numbers. So here you've got something from the books of Moses that was inscribed in silver around the time of Isaiah, which predates the release from Babylonian captivity by over 200 years. They're not
Yeah.
acknowledging that.
Yeah, we talked about the Hittites, all of
Yes.
that. The Museum of Metropolitan Art there in New York with the Hittite. You can actually get a degree now in Hittite. Hittite archaeology. Before 1910, the agnostics and the skeptics and all that said that there were no Hittites. Well, they found even the capital city, I've got it in your notes there, of the Hittites. It goes on and on and on. So the consistency of that proves science, consistency of all the manuscripts. If historians, even World War II historians, will write about battles, they can't even agree on things that happened within the last 70, 75, 80 years. So what does this imply very strongly? That what's behind all of this?
God.
No doubt. No doubt.
Literary inspiration.
Absolutely. Inspiration, which goes back to what Linda was saying. And we have coming, I don't know if you guys know this yet, but about this time next year, the 1st of March, we're going to have, he's a brother, he's the president of Florida College.
Buddy Payne.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Buddy Payne is going to come, and he's going, now he can speak on, you want to talk doctor stuff? He's there. You want to talk religious stuff? He can talk with anybody about anything on whatever level you choose to talk about. He's going to be here, and he's going to present for 3 or 4 days, nights. the evidences and about evolution and all of that from a scholarly perspective in addition to a biblical perspective. You got to be here for that. It'll be the first week in March. Whatever you got going on, cancel it. You have to be here for that. It's that powerful stuff. And so he agreed to come. And so we've got him coming. People are already said from Tucson are coming and all around, but you got to be here for that. Spring break, then you're not going to go spring break that week. You'll go next year. You're going to be here for that. You have to be. You have to be. So that's a little side benefit. It don't cost anything. Yeah.
Teresa and I have seen him. He is fantastic.
He is.
And this little lessons he's giving you, he took 7 days in Tucson.
Right.
He didn't even scratch the surface.
Yeah.
We had meetings afterward where we'd ask him questions, and you're right, it doesn't matter what level you're on, he'll talk to you on your level.
Yep, that's good, Mike. Do you know that most of our laws, maybe I would say almost all of our laws, you know what they're based on? Bible, biblical principles. Our legal system is based on the Bible.
Our Constitution.
Our Constitution is based, now, we're trying our best, not we, but in this country, they are trying their best to throw all of that out, and I think they may be somewhat successful going forward. It's kind of scary. Won't get into that. So our civil laws are based on that. What other book do you know that can answer these questions? Where did I come from? Why am I here? And where am I going? What other book tells you that? You don't have to think long, that'd be zero. What is and you can almost say it in 4 words, at least I did. I'm going to be curious to how you say it. What's the central theme of the entire book, the Bible, the book?
Jesus.
Well, Jesus for sure, no doubt.
God's plan of salvation.
God's plan of salvation, perfect. I had the salvation of man, same thing. That's the central theme of the entire Bible. Jesus is coming. I'm going to give you a law temporarily, but Jesus is coming. And when he comes, and it's like we were from the lesson this morning, it's hard not to get excited about that. Particularly you get older. Right, Thelma? Nelma?
Right.
Nelma, I'm saying that. I know. Nelma, it is. As you get older, things do become more exciting because you're nearing the end.
Yeah, this world just doesn't mean a lot anymore.
It doesn't.
I just want to hear that trumpet blow.
In Kentucky, they call it the Gabriel toot.
Yes.
When Gabriel toots his horn. I'll let that one go.
It's not that life is not good, but it's just going to be so much better.
We spend most of our married life, or most of our life, collecting things, buying things, and the last part we end up selling or giving away, don't we? Things don't mean what they used to mean to us. They really don't.
I think you in one of the classes that you gave in the big auditorium, you made the statement, for those that believe, this is the worst that it can be. And for those that do not, this is the best.
That's true. Thank you for bringing that up. That is true. Think about that for a second. For the non-Christian, you better enjoy it, because this is as good as it's ever going to be. For the Christian, this is as bad as it'll ever be. This life. Now, it may get worse for us as Christians, but that's as bad as it's ever going to be for you. And that wasn't original with me.
Didn't matter.
But I really do. I like that saying. You know, the definition of originality is just forgetting where you got it. So in that case, that's original for me, because I have no idea where I got it. Selective, yeah. So think about this. How many books in the Bible? Let's see. Before I do there, anything else on the unique nature? Prophecies, cohesive, proof science, consistency of the manuscripts, civil laws based on it. It's historical. All those are wonderful ideas, and thank you for coming up with those. Anything else you can think of, and then I'm gonna let Roland, my scribe, sit down. Yeah, yes, sir.
This is more of an abstract idea, but the Bible is the only religious book that takes the fact that God exists as, it doesn't try to explain the origin of God. It doesn't try to tell you where God comes from. The idea that God exists is God is already there. And this is basically
Good
what
point.
God wants you to know about himself and what he expects from you.
In the beginning, God.
Yeah.
Those are the first words in the Bible. God, number one, God don't owe us an explanation.
That's also a little
In the beginning, God. That's where it starts. Job wanted an explanation in Job 38, 39, and 40 and 41. Did God give Job an explanation? He did not. Thank you, Roland.
You're welcome.
He did not. Read that this week. God said, I'll give you an explanation. Yeah, I just got a few questions for you to answer. And he started with that. And then Job went, and that's where we are. In the beginning, God.
And God is the great I am, not
I was, I will be,
and I am.
yeah, I
It's
am.
linear.
Yeah, very, very good. Yes, ma'am.
The Bible is also the only religious text that is backed up by both geography and archaeology.
That's true.
There's been evidence from satellite pictures of a great migration over the Red Sea, as if a large number of people walked across that sea floor. There's gold that's buried around the mountain
Yep.
where Moses forced the children of Israel to bury it. And if you look at anything else, like, for instance, a great example is the Book of Mormon, they say that people came to South America, and that was where the original Mormons
Right.
came from. And they don't have anything to back that up. They're claiming they had both horses and steel at that time, but those weren't brought until several thousand
Right.
years later by
Right.
their reckoning by Columbus.
No, that's a good point, too.
What's
And then we'll
interesting to me about the Bible too is out of 66 books, and all of the authors involved in that, none of them really claim that they're the authors. They say, I'm writing this, but these aren't my words, these are what I've been told to say.
Yep.
Out of all of those writers, they all consistently say that. This is not my story, this is God's story, and this is what He's directed me to share with you.
Very good. That's true. 66 books, written over 1,600 years. Now, who wrote these? Now, God says, okay, everybody with a PhD, step forward, because you're the ones going to write this. And can you imagine the credit they would have taken? Well, you know we're PhDs here, and God, well, who did God use? God basically saying, I don't need any of you. Here's who's going to write my books.
That was a bunch of fishermen.
Fishermen, shepherds,
Quite a variety of people.
yeah,
A wide variety of doctors.
doctors. He had some of those too.
Tax collector.
Tax collector. How are they viewed in society?
Not well.
Not well.
Same as we do today.
Yeah. That is true. Margie's back. She's
Proves the Bible.
There you go. All those things are absolutely. He used the common person because he's basically saying, because who's it written to? Basically, who's it written to? Common people like you and me. Because we know we need it. Some of the muckety mucks, they've made it on their own and they don't feel like not all. I know some wealthy people that are faithful Christians, but they're the minority generally. Brad, you had a comment.
I was going to say the same thing, and just the diversity of people that were involved in the writing of the Bible. You can't get 6 experts on anything to agree on something, but yeah, here's 66 people so diverse in their background that it's all consistent.
No, that's true, and it wasn't written in a weekend. We could get together in this room and I guess eventually hash something out, but it was written over 1,600 years by 40 different men from all different backgrounds, and the consistency of the message is awesome. God's providence, you think that's involved? His word is not going to go away. What does He say is going to be on earth when He comes back? He said, well, there'll be faith on earth, but also my kingdom will be here. You can try to, what's happened in history, if you go back to history, what's happened when people have tried to stamp out Christianity? The Romans, and so on and so on. How'd that work?
Flourishes.
It flourishes during those times. I think sometimes, it's probably coming, but I think sometimes his kingdom grows when it's under duress, when it's under stress. And we're on the road to that. It'll separate the wheat when all of this shakes out, but the kingdom's going to grow. It is growing, and there are people looking now. There are people looking now. They really are. Lisa, and then we're going to have to move.
Well, I think that's what happens to us too. Honestly, we grow when we're under the most duress.
We
turn
do.
God. That's when we grow the most.
That's a good point. When things are easy, relatively easy, we all have those times in our lives, and thank God for that. We need a break occasionally from all the stresses of life. You finally graduate from college and you do all these things. You're about at your wit's end, right? Okay, now you can take a deep breath. But there are things, we're going to have those stressors in our life. They're coming, but that's when we grow. At those times we can either grow or we can go. That's about our choices. We reach these forks in the road. We all do in our lives. And some of them are major, and then some of them are forks off of that fork. But we're going to have those. But that's when we grow. Is it easy?
No.
It's not. I'm going to have to move. Okay, go ahead.
I think of those times, when those times have come in my life, and a lot of them have, I think of Peter, Lord, to whom should we go? Only you have the words of life. You know, if we don't stay with the Lord, to whom should we go?
No, that's a good point. All the people who were walking with Jesus for the food turned and walked away, and you could just, the Lord very wistfully, you could just sense it almost in his voice. He looked and just almost exasperated and said, "You boys going away too?" Because everybody's left me. And Peter said, "We got no place to go." But yet, we have Christians who don't attend like they should. They do everything else in their life fairly punctually, but when it comes to religious things, they're not here. They don't do things. Are we really serious about what we're doing? We better get that way. We better get that way. Sharon.
I can't remember where the verse is, but it's tribulation produces perseverance, perseverance produces hope, hope and faith. And tying into what we were just saying, if we are not at some point forced to fight for it, then it doesn't mean anything to us. You know, just as you were saying, in those times when the church has been most persecuted is when it has flourished the most.
That's right. That's
and it's very easy to take it for granted, and as soon as you have it taken away, or you have it less accessible, then you begin to fight for it, and it's just slothfulness. And if it becomes too easy to have faith, then that's when it becomes weak.
Right. That's so true. This health and wealth gospel that's espoused on TV and the radio and all that, where you of course they're the ones getting wealthy in most cases, and that's not biblical. When you become a Christian, in some ways your life becomes more difficult. It's the most rewarding life you can have, but it doesn't become easy. Remember, we talked about that when Jesus said there's going to be some, your family's going to turn on you because of your faith. Then they just have to turn because you can't go back. There's no place to go. There's just no place to go. So when you're having some down times, whatever, and we've all been there and think, this is too, I'm going to give up. Where are you going? No place to go. Got to move, Joy. Oh, Joy, okay, one more.
That means a lot to me, what we're talking about now, about Christianity flourishing in hard times, because I see hard times coming. I am concerned about the growth of Islam. So that has meant a lot to me. to hear this today.
Yes, yes. Oh, thank you. And I appreciate all the good comments. There's some really good, powerful stuff been said today by you all. The New Testament was completed in about 70 years. Do you see God's providence? Somebody help me with that. Do you see God's providence? And we can't read his mind, but from the time Jesus died to the time the New Testament was completed was 70 years, or maybe slightly less even than 70 years. 33 to 96 or 7, whatever that would be, 60-something years. Do you see any wisdom in that, God's wisdom in that?
Eyewitnesses.
Somebody said,
Eyewitnesses.
the eyewitnesses. There were people alive who knew Jesus. They might have been small, they would have been small. When he walked on the earth, by the time this Bible was completed. What else? Oh my, it can't be. What else? What else along that line? If there were, I'm going to help you a little bit. If there were discrepancies, if this thing was done in the shade somewhere, you know, a little shady, what would some of the older people have said, and some of the historians, and what would they have done?
They'd call it accidents.
That's not right. I saw. There's no records of any of that.
Like you were talking about the World War II. Everybody has a different version. Well, that one didn't happen. I saw this and I saw that. It didn't happen with the New Testament.
That's right. Now I'm gonna have to jump in here on this one by our last 5 minutes. But even non-Christian authors. Now you can find lots of New Testament church fathers, if you will, who were disciples of John, the Apostle John, and all of that. No, that's one thing. There's some non-Christian authors that I have a couple of quotes from that I want to share with you. I was found this week actually. Not in your notes, but of course we all know about Josephus. But in 93 AD, so that's about 4 years before John was exiled to Patmos when he wrote the book of Revelation. It's exactly 60 years after Jesus ascended back into heaven. The author, Josephus, who was no fan of Christianity, none. He says this. James, this is quoted. They have the fragments. James, the brother of Jesus, the so-called Christ. This is we might call him today an atheist, who recognized this man James, who we can read about in Acts 15 and other places, had a brother named Jesus, and then this skeptic said, the so-called Christ. Was Christ here? There's no doubt. The history says he was here. Even the folks who hated him. There's another one, Pliny. It may be a shorty. If it's a short I, it's Pliny, but I think it's Pliny. I won't argue over that. Who is certainly no fan of Christianity. And he had a running mate called Tacitus. And they quoted this. They found a thing here. Christianity, a destructive superstition. Okay, so with that word, just Christian, it's been around for 2,000 years. Even the folks who hate it said there was a Jesus. Now, we think he was an imposter. There is a Christianity who we think is a destructive superstition. People say that today. So we're dealing in facts. This is not something that somebody had a bad dream on and found a golden pot out in the middle of a desert. No. This is the real deal. Even the folks who hate Christianity, there are records of 2,000 years ago that talk about Jesus and talk about Christianity. Can you have faith in this book? You better believe it. For all these reasons. It's a unique thing. Now we're going to get into weeds a little bit on Wednesday night with some of the, I've got a lot of scriptures here that's not in your notes, but you'll be able to do that. We're going to look at some of the prophecies about Jesus and about His Word. Was that the second? No, what, not yet. They, I'm going to say relatively recently, found, and I put this in your notes, a papyrus, a papyri. We don't use that word too much where I come from, but anyway. Papyri that dates back to around 29 years from its original writing. You know, this wasn't written in a back room somewhere. There's facts, there's evidence that substantiate up to 99.5% of the accuracy of what we read today. And I'm okay with Greek and all that, but I've been thinking about all that, Hebrew and so on. I don't want to scare anybody that's not a Christian or new Christians, because you may be thinking, well, we've got to know Greek or Hebrew. I don't want that to come across at all. You don't need to know a word of Greek or Hebrew to make it to heaven. That's what some of the denominations in the past have said, all those kinds of things. You can't understand this, it's too difficult. So I'll throw out some Greek words occasionally, but I'm not going to bank on that mess. We've got this right here. If we want to have us a big PhD class, we can talk about all that, but I don't want to scare anybody with a bunch of Greek, because it may turn some non-Christians off.
But, you know,
It may.
it's a wonderful thing about God's Word. If you have a dozen PhDs, you still are going to find something new in there every time you read it.
Yes.
So it's as deep as you want to go, or it's as simple as you can go.
Now, okay, I'm going to close with this one. Do you have to be a Rhodes Scholar to understand what it takes to be a Christian?
No.
How long did it take Philip to teach the Ethiopian eunuch on the road to Damascus, not from Damascus, going back home to Ethiopia? How long did it take? I don't know, an hour or two? Now, did he know everything about the Bible after that encounter with Philip on the road? Did he know enough to be baptized for the remission of his sins?
Yes.
So we've got to be careful with all of this stuff. Sometimes I can go there with it. I love to study all of that. But make sure we understand, we don't want to confuse anybody. You don't need much to know much to become a Christian. Now that's the start. That's not the finish, though, isn't it? Appreciate all of you all so much. Thank you for your great comments. Thank you for my scribe.
Thanks, Scribe.